Good morning. Have you guys missed me? I have missed you, and I apologize for not being on here. Back-to-back Tony Robbins events, and I threw in a pink Pat Benatar concert in the middle for my lovely bride. Speaking of that, I have not forgotten about all of you that donated money to the charity so that she can run. I believe that we've raised all the money that she needed so that she can do the Chicago Marathon. I'll confirm those numbers and let you know that this week. So then those that donated, I owe you one-on-one coaching. And if we hit the number, I said that I would do a free seminar, which I will do. We'll set all that up for this fall. So, we do these seminars and I get asked all the time, why do you do all these seminars? How come you do seminar after seminar after seminar? And, we've gone through this on these videos time and time again, but repetition is the mother of skill. Why I do the seminars again and again is because every time I'm a different person in a different place and I get different stuff out of it. I did a UPW seminar, which I've probably been to close to 50 of those at this point, but I still get different stuff. And then I did a business mastery, which this is probably about my 10th business mastery. My first one was in 2016 and it changed my life dramatically or 2017, sorry. And it changed my life dramatically because that was when I went out on my own, started my own law firm, changed how I did business completely, which changed everything. But this business mastery, I think, impacted me just as much as that first one in 2017 or really close. And it's just because I'm at a different place and we're going to a different level. And so all of this information just hits you in a different spot. If I was going to give one biggest takeaway from the UPW. So I've done these UPWs for a million times. What's the biggest takeaway? What's the thing? If there was one thing that you were going to pick, I would pick that it is not what happens that decides your life. It's your decisions that decide your life. As Tony Robbins says, it's not your circumstances, it's your decisions. It's never a lack of resources. It's always a lack of resourcefulness. We also say it as it's in the moment of decision that your destiny is shaped. Stephen Covey says it's in the gap between the event and your response that your life is decided, that your outcome is decided, that your legacy is decided. We get to choose how we respond to any given event. Can two people have the same circumstances and have completely different responses? Sure. We see that all the time. You can see that with siblings or even twins who grew up in a terrible household and one of them ends up in prison and the other one ends up super successful. And when you ask them why, they both say the same thing. How else would I turn out given my circumstances? It is not your circumstances that dictate what your outcome is in your life. It just isn't. Do some people have more advantages? Absolutely. Some people have more advantages, some people have more opportunities, but let's face it. If you're watching me on this screen, your worst situation is somebody else's dream. Especially if you live, in the United States at this time or any modernized country at this time, unless obviously if you've got, a child who's super ill or something like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when life hits us and knocks us down, when we end up in those situations where all of a sudden we're like, why did this happen to me? You have a series of events that you had nothing to do with, but they take you down just because, and we start getting into that pattern of thinking of woe is me. Well, our biggest nightmare is somebody else's dream. Because if you're late to work or the Starbucks is wrong or the pipe burst and flooded something or the car isn't working right, okay, those are bummers, but in the broader scheme of things, how bad is it? And the one takeaway from every UPW is we decide how we feel. Circumstances do not decide how we feel. We decide how we feel. And the people who lead lives that we talk about, take a hold of that and make a decision that they're going to manage their life. They're going to design their own life and not become part of somebody else's design for theirs. They are going to be the ones that decide how they feel no matter what happens to them. And the greatest inspirational stories are the people that have had tragedy after tragedy after tragedy and then still show up and are grateful and happy and loving and caring. And as a result, they have a joyous life that we all look at as a role model for the rest of us. You know, the Holocaust survivors for me are the ones that implemented that as much as anybody that I've ever seen. Because the stories that they tell are so unbelievable that it's, you can't wrap your mind around it. How does that even happen? But how can anybody go through that and survive? And the ones that do come out of it, and they don't walk around saying, you know, here's my story, feel sorry for me. That's not what they do at all. They walk around and say, can you believe that I got to live the way that I've gotten to live after going through all of that? Can you believe, you know, the incredible gratitude that I have for my life because of, you know, I look at it as I'm going to appreciate everything that much more because I went through that event. That's how the Holocaust survivors look at it that I've run into. And because of that attitude, you know, if you read As a Man Thinketh, his conclusion is that the reason they survived was because of that attitude. That it was because of, I've got a reason and I'm going to be grateful for life when this is all done, and I'm going to tell everybody about this event. That's how they made it through. So all of these events, we get tons of distinctions, we get tons of technologies, we get tons of different ways to make your life better. Obviously at Business Mastery, it's all about how to make your business better, but we learn that even business is a psychological game, that the chokehold on the business is the owner. The chokehold on the business is the psychology of the owner. It's 80% psychology, 20% ability, 20% technology. You have to know certain things. You have to know certain pieces of understanding in order to run your business. You got to know how to read numbers. You got to know how to do this. You got to know how to do that. But quite frankly, most of that is pretty fundamental. What holds a business back is the psychology of the owner. And that's because they get wrapped up in their story, and we all do. I'm just as guilty of it as anybody else. When things don't go right, which, let's face it, as you're an entrepreneur, is guaranteed that you're going to have days where things don't go right, or months or years, no matter how long you've been doing it. And when that happens, we get wrapped up in our story and we don't see the bigger picture. Why a guy like Jay Abrahams has made so much money is because he gets you to see the bigger picture. He gets you to see the other opportunities that are out there. He gets you to see what you're not seeing. Well, we can do that for ourselves. And that greatest takeaway from a UPW for me is you decide how you feel. And once you grasp that understanding, that it isn't your circumstances that decide your outcome in your life, it's your decisions. It's never resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. Once you get that, life becomes a whole different thing. Because now, no matter what happens to you, you're going to respond in a way that's going to be resourceful, which is going to get you to grow, which is going to get you to achieve the outcomes that you're looking for, which, you know, happiness comes from growth. The secret to living is giving. The secret to happiness is growth. When we get stuck in our story, we're not growing, we're dying. And that's when we feel depressed and we feel all of those things. But when we see the opportunities, when we look at the circumstances and say, I get to decide how I respond to this. You know, if it's a death of a loved one, if it's that all of a sudden you have been diagnosed with an illness, if it's your finances fall apart through no fault of your own, if it's a relationship falls apart and you had no intention of that ever happening. Whatever it is that is out of your control, what is in your control is response to those events. And if you decide that for the rest of your life, from here forward, that's going to be your approach, that you're going to control those emotions and the response to that, your life just takes on a whole new meaning. Because now you can look at what you're grateful for. And when you come from a place of gratitude, you're gonna take more action, which is gonna produce more results, which is gonna give you more outcomes towards what you're looking for, and then it spirals into a success cycle. Whereas the opposite does the opposite. If you become depressed and feel like a victim, now you take less action, which means you get less results, which results in you feeling more like a victim, and now you cycle the opposite direction. The choice is ours. That's the biggest takeaway that I get from a UPW, and that's what continues to get ingrained in my head every time I do these events. As many as I do them, I still feel like a kid when I show up and these guys start talking. Jay Abrahams this time was live for like 9 hours at the end of Business Mastery. The guy just blew me away. I mean, they did a question and answer with people with their businesses, and everyone was the same. They were sitting there saying, there's no resources. I'm the only person that can do this. I can't find anybody. There's nobody that can help me. No matter what the business was, that was the story. And they would sit there and they would kind of snicker, and it's almost a game. It's not almost a game. It is a game to them. And they look at it and go, what about this, this, and people, I hadn't thought of any of that. Right. It's not because you're dumb. It's because you didn't open up your mind to think about those things. It's because you're stuck in your story. So get out of your story, whatever that is. Make a decision that you're going to decide how you respond to events, and watch your life take a whole new meaning as you go forward. And keep track, because a month from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, you're not going to think much has changed, but when you go back and keep score, you're going to see that a lot has changed. And you're going to become the role model that you've always wanted to be. Thank you, everybody. I've missed you. Mr. Drehobel down in Florida, I hope you're doing okay. Janet, it's great to have you on. Brandon, my new neighbor, thank you so much for hopping on. And Stephanie, love you guys. Honored when you take the time to be on here. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.